Today we're continuing our series on the book of Mark, ReMarkAble. How many of you have a superpower? Any of you? No? None of you? What if I told you that all of us have a superpower? Would you believe me? No? You're like, no, Pastor, superheroes, that's just stuff for the movies, or that's just stuff for little kids' imaginations. None of us really are or really have superpowers. But the thing is, there's people that truly believe that everyone has a superpower. I'm not the one that's telling you have a superpower. Actually, there's a lot of people in the media that are saying that we have a superpower. You can find magazine articles about it. You can find websites devoted to this. You can find video clips, TED Talks, YouTube videos. A lot of people are trying to get everyone to understand that we have a superpower. And perhaps the superpower has been forgotten, that we don't pay too much attention to it, but it's a superpower that we all have. Do you want to know what it is? Yes? Okay. It is the superpower to believe. Now, I know this might not be as earth-shattering, mind-blowing as saying, okay, everyone has the untapped potential to fly or have X-ray vision or be bulletproof or whatever the case may be. But there's people that really believe that, that really are convicted that belief is a superpower. Now, you can, like I said, you can read articles about it, you can watch videos about it, but one of the best evidences that they have for this understanding is the placebo effect. Now, probably many of you have heard of this term before and know what the placebo effect is, but for those of us that might not remember it off the top of our heads, the placebo effect is when a drug company, for example, comes up with a new drug to treat a disease or a ailment, and they're going through the testing to see how effective that drug really is. And so part of the test, part of the trials is they give the new drug to a group of people that are dealing with that particular illness. And they also give people in that group a placebo, a sugar pill that has no medical value whatsoever. And so that way they're able to tell, is this drug really working or not? The thing is, frequently people that are taking the placebo, that are taking the pill that does nothing, feel better. They feel their symptoms go away and their quality of life improves, and people that try to get us to understand how important belief is, that belief is a superpower, point to this and say, look, it's all in someone's mind. They're getting better even on a sugar pill because they believe what they're taking is helping them, when in reality it's not. And what's really helping them is their belief that they're getting better. And so they say that our ability to believe, and not just in drugs or whatever the case may be, but just our general ability to believe really is a superpower that can help us do amazing things if we harness it. Belief is a superpower to many people. Today, in our fifth part of our sermon series, ReMarkAble, as we've been looking at the life and teachings of Jesus for 4 weeks already, so for the first 4 chapters of Mark, we found that it really is a remarkable story because it tells about a remarkable man, the most remarkable person who has ever lived. His life is condensed here into 16 short chapters. And as we've gone through the first 4 of them, we can see how action-packed this book is. Jesus is always doing one thing and then another, and immediately does another thing, and immediately does another thing. Last week, he kind of took a little breather as we finally took a look at something that Jesus taught and not something that he did. But today, we're going back into the action, jumping right back in to maybe one of the most significant things that Jesus did in his ministry. Mark chapter 5. There's a lot of stories that we've covered. We've talked about Jesus, how he casts out demons. This was a reoccurrent theme in the book of Mark. This great controversy theme, this spiritual battle that's going on behind the scenes. We've looked at how Jesus called his disciples and is leading his disciples. And that's another of the major themes of the book of Mark, this discipleship theme of what it means to be a follower of Christ and what it really means to be his disciple. And we've seen him perform miracles, and we've seen him learn about his teachings last week about seeds, and we've seen him do and teach a lot of different things. But today we're going to look at, like I said, one of the most amazing, significant things that Jesus did during his ministry. The first part of the book chapter of Mark, chapter 5, talks about a really amazing story of Jesus casting out demons. So it's a fairly well-known story, but I encourage you to read along as we go through the book of Mark. How many of you have been reading along as we've gone through this series? Good, I see a few hands. I'd like to see some more, so I encourage you to read because we can't cover it all in just the morning sermon. So the first part of the chapter 5 talks about Jesus casting out demons into a herd of pigs, and it's a really amazing story. I highly encourage you to read it at some point later this week. But we pick up our study this morning in Mark chapter 5, verse 22. It says, "Then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came. And when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, 'My little daughter is dying.'" It's interesting that in Mark, because every word is precious, Mark is only 16 chapters long, and he's trying to get across the story of the most remarkable person who has ever lived. He doesn't spend a lot of time naming people. If you've been reading along, you've seen that it just talks about a man here or a woman there. But this is such a significant story that Mark actually names the person. Jairus, the father. Jairus comes to Jesus and begs him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come, put your hands on her so she will be healed and will live." So Jesus went with him. A large crowd followed Jesus and pushed very close around him. And here we come to one of those brackets. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, how one of Mark's writing techniques is to start telling a story and then press the pause button, and then he'll tell a whole nother story, and then press play again from that first story and finish that story. So he has kind of like a story sandwich. He starts with one story, tells a whole story, and comes back to it, and both stories are important because they both kind of tie in the important themes and the important lessons that Jesus is trying to get across through his various teachings or actions. And so here comes Jairus and begging Jesus to come heal his daughter, and Mark pushes pause on this story. He starts telling another story. We're not going to get into the whole story here, but in Mark chapter 5, verses 25 to 34, there's a story of a woman that has been bleeding for decades, and how she finds healing. As we saw, as Jesus was going towards Jairus' daughter, his crowd is pushing in around him, and they're walking towards the house, and all of a sudden Jesus stops, and he says, "Who touched me?" And the disciples are, "What are you talking about, Jesus? Everyone touched you. There's a whole mob around you." And he says, No, something's different. And he looks, and there's this woman behind him that had reached out her hand and grabbed onto his robe, and she had been healed. She had spent her fortune, her entire savings, trying to go to doctors for healing, but it was her touching the robe of Jesus that had healed her. And Jesus looks at this woman who is trembling, the Bible says, in fear, and says, "Woman, your faith has healed you." So this is the story that kind of is in the middle of the bread slices for this story sandwich here. But Mark picks up the story in verse 35. While Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of the synagogue leader. They said, "Your daughter is dead. There is no need to bother the teacher anymore." But Jesus paid no attention to what they said. He told the synagogue leader, "Don't be afraid, just believe." Here were people that came to Jairus and said, "It's okay, the time's passed. Your daughter's dead." This is the worst possible news they can give to him. And they said, okay, you just go home, leave Jesus alone, and deal with your grief on your own. Jesus says, don't listen to him. Don't worry about that. Don't be afraid. This woman just touched my robe, and she was afraid, but she had faith. She believed. So you, in the midst of getting the worst news you've ever received in your life, don't be afraid. Just believe. This brings us to our first remarkable point of the morning. To believe in something requires action. To believe in something requires that you act on that belief. For example, you could believe that you could beat this chess grandmaster. You could tell everyone in the world that you came in contact with, I can totally beat this chess grandmaster. I can do it. I know I can. I fully believe that I can take him down or her down. But whenever that grandmaster offers you the chance to play, and you keep coming up with excuses, and you never actually play the game, do you really believe that you can win? No. Because your belief has to come with action. This lady that was bleeding that we briefly discussed, she could have believed all she wanted that Jesus could heal her. She could have believed all she wanted that if she touched his robe, that she would be healed. But if she actually didn't get into that crowd and she actually didn't reach out her hand and hold on to the hem of Jesus' garment, would she really have believed? No. Her actions were based on her beliefs. The same way, Jairus, he could have believed, and it could have all just been belief that was stuck in his head. I mean, here was a perfect opportunity for him just to simply walk away. Oh, my daughter's dead. I mean, I believed you could heal her when she was sick, but now she's dead. I just need to be alone. He could have just said that he believed. Yes, Jesus, I believe, but it's okay. I don't want to bother you. But Jesus said, don't be afraid. Just believe. And in that was implied to continue on with his actions. Because if Jairus said, yes, I believe, but I'm just going to go home alone. If Jairus said, I believe, and I'm not going to bring you home with me, would that really be belief? No. It's important for your belief to lead to action. Jairus had a choice to make. Was he really, truly a believer in Jesus? A believer that Jesus could do something amazing like heal his daughter? Was a believer that Jesus could maybe even do something even more amazing like raise his daughter from the dead? Or was his just a simple belief that didn't really go anywhere or do anything? It was a choice that he had to make. Gandhi, one of the most famous historical figures in the world, one of the famous Indian leader, he said, to believe in something and not to live it is dishonest. To believe in something and not to live it, not to put it into action, is dishonest. And so here Jesus comes to Jairus, and he has the perfect opportunity to put his belief into action. To believe in something requires action. And it doesn't just require action of Jairus 2,000 years ago. It's something that requires action from us today. If you and I say that we believe in Jesus, if we really say that we're a follower of Jesus, if we really say we're a disciple of Jesus, then we just can't be satisfied with saying what we believe for an hour on Sabbath mornings. We have to put our belief into action. It's not a suggestion, it's a requirement. We have to live out this belief, or else we're being dishonest. or else we really don't believe. That's why James, the brother of Jesus, writes in his book in the New Testament that faith without works is dead, that belief without action is useless. To believe in something requires action. The story continues here in verse 37. Jesus let only Peter, James, and John, the brother of James, go with him. Jairus didn't just say he believed. He continued on with this journey. He continued to bring Jesus and Peter, James, and John along with him back to the house. And when they came to the house of the synagogue leader, Jesus found many people there, making lots of noise and crying loudly. Jesus entered the house and said to them, "Why are you crying and making so much noise? The child is not dead, only asleep." But they laughed at him. Can you imagine laughing in the face of Jesus? I know we think, well, Jesus was here with us today. We'd give him the utmost respect, and this would be an amazing thing. But here was Jesus. I mean, this wasn't his first rodeo, so to speak. Jesus had been ministering, performing miracles. He had been teaching amazing things for quite some time. He had a huge following. You just read a couple of verses ago how the crowd was pushed around him. They knew what kind of man Jesus was. And here Jesus comes to them, and he says, the child's not dead, she's just asleep. And what do? They laugh in his face. This is our second remarkable point. To believe in the unreasonable isn't easy. To believe in something that goes against reason isn't an easy thing to do. It wasn't easy for those people to hear that this child was just asleep and not dead, because they knew what dead looked like. And this girl was dead. And so they laughed and mocked Jesus, because it's not easy to believe in something that's unreasonable. And I believe you can see this graph here shows the rise of atheism in the world. It's been on the steady rise since the 80s. I mean, there's always been atheists. There's always been, kind of that movement, but it's really grown exponentially in the past few decades, because more and more people find belief, find faith, find religion to be unreasonable. And they don't want to do something that's not easy. They don't want to think of or put themselves out there or into a place where it's not an easy thing to do, to live, to prove, so to speak. Neil deGrasse Tyson was a famous, well-known astrophysicist. He says, the good thing about science is that it's true whether you believe in it, whether or not you believe in it. And this is really the fundamental thing of science versus faith, right? Versus belief. Because science is saying you don't need to believe in us. We don't require belief because we have the facts. We have data. We don't need whether, like he says, whether you believe it or not, it's not going to change the fact that 1 + 1 = 2. It's not going to change the fact that you throw something up, gravity's going to drop it back down. You don't need to believe in gravity for it to exist. Science doesn't require belief. And more people are coming into line with that, thinking, yeah, that's true. I don't need to believe. I don't need to exercise faith. I can just look at the facts and live my life according to what is right there in front of me. So you see, the people that were there in that house with Jairus' daughter, they didn't have, the modern medicine, scientific tools. They didn't have blood pressure cuffs or pulse ox monitors or stethoscopes to know for sure if she was dead according to our standards. But they knew, according to what their standards were, what their experiences were, that the data shows that the facts were that this girl was dead. She wasn't just taking a nap, she was dead. And for Jesus to come into this place, To come into this place where the facts were black and white, where this girl wasn't kind of, maybe in a coma, maybe a little alive, or not, somewhere in those in-between stages, where this girl was dead, and for him to say that she was just asleep, it was an unreasonable belief for them. And they laughed at Jesus. Nobody likes to be laughed at. Doesn't matter how old you are, how young you are. To be mocked, to be ridiculed isn't something that any of us enjoy. I'm sure that Jesus didn't enjoy being laughed at. And yet, when he calls us to follow him, he says, when you're my disciple, they're going to treat you like they treated me. Because to follow Jesus, to believe in a God that created us, and to believe in a God that loves us, to believe in a God that came to this earth and died in your place and in my place, to believe in a God that promises to come again and to raise us up from the dead and to give us eternal life, all of that is unreasonable. All of that is something that the world finds easy to mock. To believe in the unreasonable isn't easy. And yet, as we read this story, as we follow along the life and the teachings of Jesus, we find that even though it isn't easy, it is definitely worth it. Verse 40 continues. It says, so, after throwing them out of the house, pretty harsh language, right? Jesus is like, all right, you laughed at me, get out. like I said, no one likes to be laughed at. So after throwing them out of the house, Jesus took the child's father and mother, his 3 followers, into the room where the child was. Taking hold of the girl's hand, he said to her, Talitha cum, which is Aramaic for a young girl, I tell you, stand up. At once, the girl stood right up and began walking. She was 12 years old. Everyone was completely amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell people about this, which is, if you have been following along, you know that Mark, there's this reoccurring theme. Another theme throughout Mark is this divine secret, this messianic secret, where Jesus performs an amazing miracle and then tells people, shh, don't tell anyone else. And so I think this is one of the first times we've talked about it here in our sermon series, but as you've been reading along, you've come across it several times, I'm sure, and we'll get to it a little bit later in our coverage of the book of Mark, but it's something that we need to kind of keep tucked in our minds, that there's something that there's a purpose for Jesus to do these amazing things and then tell the people, the witnesses of his miracles, to not spread it around, to keep it under wraps, to be quiet. And so he told them that were there, that witnessed this event, to not tell other people that this girl had come back to life. Which is interesting, because he had just been laughed about it, right? Laughed at for it. I think a lot of us, we might have kicked them out of the room and then wanted to rub their noses in it, right? When someone tells you you can't do something and you do it, you're like, ha ha, I showed you, I told you, right? Not Jesus. He says, you know what? They're not here. Don't worry about it. Don't tell them about it. You know what's happened. I know what's happened. You have your girl back to you, alive. Now give her something to eat. Jesus really does care about the practical needs of people, doesn't he? So, okay, I mean, isn't it amazing she's back to life and now everyone praise me? No, he says, she's here. Shh, and feed her. She's hungry. I guess death, makes someone ready, you think you're hungry after going to the gym. I guess dying for a few hours really can make you hungry again. He says, so feed her. Care for her needs. And this brings us to our last remarkable point of the morning. To believe is to have a superpower, but only when we place that belief in God. See, the media, these articles, these videos that tell us that we need to believe, that superpower of belief really is belief in ourselves. That's what people say the superpower comes from, is when we believe in ourselves. When we look in the mirror and, that old Saturday Night Live sketch with Stuart Small, he says, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you. You pump yourself up because you can do it, right? You need to believe in yourself. That's where the success comes from. That's where the ability to do amazing things comes from. That's the source of everyone's superpower, is the belief in yourself. Karlie Kloss, an American fashion model, says this: if you believe in yourself and feel confident in yourself, you can do anything. I really believe that. And this is just an example. You can find, there's similar quotes from stars, well-known people across the spectrum. Miley Cyrus, Michael Jordan, they've all said similar quotes. If you believe in yourself, you can do anything. If you and I were in that room that day with that 12-year-old little girl who had passed away, we could believe in ourselves as much as we could. But there's no amount of believing in yourself that could have ever raised a dead person to life. That kind of power is reserved only for God. And it is by believing in Him, it is by laying hold of His superpower that we can hope to do amazing things in this life and in this world. It is not because we believe in ourselves. It is because we have placed our belief in Him. To believe is to have superpower, but only when we place that belief in God. And those words that Jesus offered to Jairus 2,000 years ago, don't be afraid, just believe, are the same words He offers to you and to me this morning. The journey that we're on to the heavenly kingdom, as we've talked about, it's a dangerous one. It's not an easy journey. It's a journey that if we really saw it clearly, it would fill us all with fear. And that is why Jesus says, don't be afraid, because all you have to do is believe in me. I will guide you across. We will get through this journey together. This is my promise to you. This is why I have come to this earth. This is why I have died on the cross, so that you can make it to the other side. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to worry. All you have to do is put your belief in me and act on that belief by following me. Don't just say you believe in me. Actually believe in me. Don't just tell other people that, yeah, you're a Christian, that yeah, you take my name, and then decide to go down a different path. But believe in me. Let me be your guide. Follow me. Don't be afraid. Just believe.